My name is Olivia, I'm 33, and my own sister was sleeping with my fiancé. Before I tell you how their affair led to a shocking $400,000 embezzlement charge and a prison sentence, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Looking back now, I see that my life was like a structure I had designed with a fatal flaw in its foundation, a crack that was always there, waiting for the right pressure to bring the whole thing down. And that pressure, that seismic event, was my own family. To the outside world, we were fine. To me, I was the load-bearing wall holding everything up, and I was starting to crumble long before I even knew why. My story really begins at 18, with a thick envelope from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. MIT. It wasn't just an acceptance letter for their structural engineering program, it was a golden ticket, a full-ride scholarship. It was the blueprint for a future I had dreamed of since I was a little girl building impossible towers with Legos. I remember holding it in my hands, the paper feeling heavy with the weight of my future. The very same week, my mother received an envelope of her own, one from her doctor. The diagnosis was harsh and the prognosis was long. It meant years of treatments, of good days and bad days, of needing constant care. My younger sister, Vanessa, was 14. She lived in a world of social media, high school drama, and the sublime self-absorption that only a teenager can truly perfect. The idea of her taking on any real responsibility was laughable. So, the choice wasn't really a choice at all. It was a duty. I folded up my acceptance letter, tucked it into a box of old memories, and enrolled in a state college 20 minutes from home. My dream was put on hold to keep my family from falling apart. My parents said all the right things. "You're a saint, Olivia. We don't know what we'd do without you." But their gratitude felt thin, like a coat of cheap paint. It was their actions that told the real story. While I was juggling a full course load, a part-time job, and my mother's complicated medication schedule, Vanessa was living the life I had put on pause. My parents co-signed a loan for her first car, I took the bus. They paid for her to go on a senior trip to Cancun. I spent my spring break taking my mom to chemotherapy appointments. The pattern was set, and it hardened into fact over the next decade. I was the reliable one, the responsible one, the safety net. Vanessa was the exciting one, the one with spark, the investment. Her failures were just learning experiences. My successes were simply expected. The most painful example was her fashion boutique. At 24, Vanessa decided she was the next Coco Chanel. She drafted a business plan on a series of cocktail napkins. My parents, still paying off the debts from her first car, took out a second mortgage on their house to fund it. I tried to help. I spent a weekend drafting a real business plan for her, with spreadsheets, profit and loss projections, inventory management systems. I tried to explain the importance of cash flow and marketing budgets. She glanced at my work, wrinkled her nose, and said, "Liv, this is so boring. Fashion is about passion, not numbers." My parents agreed. "Let her follow her heart," my mother said. The boutique lasted 8 months. It hemorrhaged money until the bank came calling. I was the one who sat with my father at the kitchen table, going through the mountain of debt, helping him figure out how they could possibly avoid foreclosure. Vanessa was too devastated to participate. She spent a week at a spa recovering, a trip my parents paid for with a credit card. Through it all, they never blamed her. "The economy is tough," my dad would say with a sigh. She was just ahead of her time. But they blamed me, in their own quiet way. They resented that I had been right. It was easier to be angry at my pragmatism than to face her failure. It was into this dynamic that I brought Nathan. He was my escape. A brilliant, driven marketing executive I met through a professional networking event. He was the first person who seemed to see past my role as the family caretaker. He listened, really listened, when I talked about the elegant physics of a suspension bridge or the beauty of a well-designed support beam. Our relationship felt like a perfectly engineered joint, strong and seamless. We dated for 3 years, moved in together, and started building a life. We had a joint account we called the Future Fund, and every week we'd sit down together and plan. So much for the wedding, so much for the house down payment, so much for our future. He made me feel like I finally had a true partner, someone who was building with me, not just taking from me. The night I took him to meet my family for the first time should have been a red flag. I'd just been made a junior partner at my firm, a huge accomplishment for someone my age. I spent 5 minutes trying to explain the significance of it, only to have my father cut me off to ask Vanessa about a new handbag she'd bought. Nathan saw the flash of hurt in my eyes. Later that night, he pulled me close and said, "Don't worry about them. I see how incredible you are. You're the strongest person I know." And like a fool, I leaned into him, believing he was my shield. The truth is, he wasn't my shield. He was just admiring the strength of the wall before planning to take a sledgehammer to it. And the person who would hand him that sledgehammer was my own sister. The first hairline crack appeared about a year into my engagement to Nathan. I introduced him to Vanessa at a family barbecue, and the shift was almost immediate. She, who had never shown the slightest interest in my life, was suddenly fascinated by Nathan's. She'd hang on his every word about marketing strategies and corporate ladders. I told myself it was nice that they were getting along. Then the changes in Nathan began. Small things, at first. He started dressing differently, swapping his practical department store suits for tailored, designer ones. "My mentor at work says you have to project success," he explained. He joined a high-end gym with a hefty monthly fee. His phone, which had always been an open book, suddenly had a new, complex password. He'd angle it away from me when he texted, a subtle but deliberate movement. The late nights at the office started piling up. "Big project," he'd say. "Gotta impress the partners." He'd come home smelling of expensive wine and a cologne I didn't recognize. I was working 60-hour weeks myself, trying to build our nest egg, so I was tired, and I was trusting. I wanted to believe him. The desire to believe that my life was finally on solid ground was so powerful it blinded me. One Saturday, I was balancing our checkbook and noticed a charge for $800 from a high-end jewelry store. My heart did a little flutter. Was this it? A surprise? That evening, I waited, but nothing happened. A week later, I gently brought it up. "Oh, that," he said, not missing a beat. "That was for my mom's birthday. I wanted it to be a big surprise for her." It sounded so plausible. I felt ashamed for even questioning him. Months later, I'd learned his mother's birthday present had been a gift card to a gardening center. Vanessa, meanwhile, became a constant presence in our apartment. She had a key for emergencies, and she used it constantly. I'd come home from a long day to find her on our couch, drinking our wine, chatting with Nathan. "Just getting some wedding advice," she'd say with a bright, false smile. They had inside jokes I wasn't privy to, and they'd share knowing glances over my head. I felt a growing unease, a cold knot in my stomach that I couldn't ignore. I tried talking to my parents about it. "You're being paranoid, Olivia," my mother said with an exasperated sigh. "You've finally found a good man. Don't push him away with your insecurities. You should be happy your sister likes him so much." The breaking point was the $5,000. Vanessa called me, crying about a rent emergency. I knew our future fund had just crossed a major milestone, and I felt a fierce, protective urge to guard it. I told her I was sorry, but we just couldn't. An hour later, Nathan called me. "I sent V the money," he said, his tone casual. "She's your sister, Liv. We have to help family." He had gone behind my back, taken the money we were saving for our home, our wedding, and given it to her. When I confronted him, he turned it around on me. "Why are you so cold?" he asked. "It's what families do for each other." He made me feel like the villain. The final, fatal blow came on a gray Tuesday in October. The text from Marcus, Vanessa's husband, was blunt: "Riverside Cafe. 1 hour. Urgent. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely hold my car keys. Marcus was a quiet, kind man, an accountant who seemed as overwhelmed by Vanessa's personality as I was. We weren't close, but there was a solidarity there. For him to text me like this, I knew something was terribly wrong. He was sitting in the darkest corner of the cafe. He looked gaunt, his eyes hollowed out. He didn't bother with hello. He just slid a heavy manila folder across the sticky table. "I'm sorry, Olivia," he said, his voice cracking. "You deserve to know the truth." I opened it. The first page was a hotel confirmation. The Four Seasons. A weekend 2 months ago, the same weekend Nathan had supposedly gone on a company retreat and Vanessa had claimed to be visiting a friend in another state. My breath caught in my throat. I flipped the page. A receipt from the jewelry store, the one Nathan had lied about. It was for a diamond tennis bracelet. I'd seen that bracelet on Vanessa's wrist at a family dinner just last week. She'd claimed she'd bought it for herself as a treat. Then came the photos. Marcus had hired a private investigator. There they were, my fiancé and my sister, walking out of a hotel, his arms slung casually around her shoulders. There they were, kissing in his car, a passionate, hungry kiss that made me feel sick to my stomach. Each photo was a nail in the coffin of the life I thought I had. "There's more," Marcus said grimly. He pulled out another set of papers. These were Nathan's corporate expense reports, which Marcus had somehow gotten a hold of. He was an accountant, he knew what to look for. He pointed to the line items, his fingers shaking slightly. Client dinner, $600. That was the night they'd been photographed at a Michelin star restaurant. Travel expenses, San Francisco. That was a romantic getaway they'd taken, disguised as a business trip. "He's been funding their entire affair with his company's money," Marcus whispered. "He's embezzling, Olivia. And it's not just a few dollars. It looks like tens of thousands." I felt the world tilt on its axis. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was a calculated, criminal conspiracy. But the worst was yet to come. The last page was a printout of text messages. Vanessa had backed up her phone to their family iPad, and Marcus had found the thread. "Nathan, just a little longer. My year-end bonus lands in December. Once that money is secure, we tell them and we're out. Vanessa, I can't wait. I'm so sick of pretending." Last night Olivia was going on and on about the tensile strength of steel. I almost fell asleep in my soup. "Nathan, I know. But her salary is the engine funding our escape plan. She's a useful fool. A perfect, boring stepping stone. A stepping stone." The words burned themselves into my brain. I wasn't a partner. I wasn't even a person to him. I was a tool. An asset to be used and discarded. And my own sister had held the hammer. I looked up from the page, my vision blurred. I felt nothing. It was a terrifying, hollow emptiness. The grief was so immense it had become a vacuum. Then, a single, cold thought cut through the numbness. I'm an engineer. I understand structural integrity. I know that when a foundation is rotten, you don't patch it. You demolish it. You bring the whole damn thing down, and you build something new in its place. I met Marcus's gaze. The shared pain in his eyes solidified into something else, resolve. He called me a stepping stone, I said, my voice eerily calm. He's about to find out what happens when you underestimate the stone you're standing on. The 2 days after D-Day, Discovery Day, were a blur of calculated action. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. The emotional overload had short-circuited, leaving only the cold, clear logic of an engineer with a problem to solve. The problem was Nathan and Vanessa. The solution was a controlled demolition. I started at my bank the next morning. I can still picture the young, friendly teller. "How can I help you today?" she asked with a smile. "I need to open a new set of accounts, in my name only," I said, my voice steady. "And I need to initiate a transfer from a joint account." She guided me through the process, her professional cheerfulness a strange counterpoint to the surgical dismantling of my life. I moved every penny I had contributed to our future fund into my new, secure account. It was a significant sum, a testament to years of long hours and careful saving. I left a few $1,000s in the joint account, just enough to avoid raising immediate alarms. Next, I went to my office and had a discreet meeting with HR to redirect my salary. My paycheck, my promotion bonus, they would now flow into a place Nathan couldn't touch. Then began the tedious but satisfying process of untangling our lives. I called every credit card company, every utility, every subscription service. "I need to remove an authorized user," I said, over and over, my voice becoming more confident each time. With every call, I was taking back a piece of my life. The most important stop was my last. Jessica Stone's law office was sleek and modern, all glass and steel, much like the woman herself. I laid the folder on her desk. She didn't offer condolences or platitudes. She was a surgeon, and this was an operation. She scanned the documents, her sharp eyes missing nothing. The hotel receipts, the expense reports, the damning text messages. After a long silence, she leaned back in her leather chair and looked at me. A slow, predatory smile spread across her face. "Well, Ms. Porter," she said, "your fiancé isn't just a cheater. He's a fool. An arrogant, sloppy fool." She explained the legal landscape. In this state, a simple divorce over infidelity is messy but straightforward. This, she tapped the folder with a perfectly manicured nail, this is a tactical advantage. The embezzlement is what we lawyers call dissipation of marital assets. He wasn't just spending money, he was illegally funneling marital and corporate funds to finance his affair. This gives us incredible leverage. We won't just ask for a fair settlement. We will demand it. Her confidence was a balm to my shattered nerves. I wrote her a check for a $5,000 retainer without flinching. It was the first payment I made from my new account, an investment in my own liberation. "Now," she said, her eyes glinting, "we go quiet. You stay at your friend's place. Do not engage with him. Do not answer his calls. Let him spin. We'll draft the initial filing. We're not just filing for divorce. We're filing a civil suit that references the evidence of financial misconduct. We'll serve him at his office, at the moment of our choosing." I spent the next 3 days at Jamie's. She was a rock, providing a quiet space, endless cups of tea, and no judgment. It was there, in the quiet of her spare bedroom, that the emotional dam finally broke. I found a small, framed photo of Nathan and me from a trip we'd taken to the coast, a picture I must have packed without thinking. In it, we were laughing, the sun on our faces, the picture of happiness. A sob tore through me, so violent it felt like it was ripping me in two. All the pain, the humiliation, the sheer waste of it all, came crashing down. I curled up on the bed, clutching the photo, and wept until I was empty. I thought about deleting all the evidence, about calling him, about trying to understand how the man who had held my hand in that photo could do this to me. Jamie found me an hour later, my face swollen, the photo lying on the floor. She didn't say, "I told you so," or "You're better off." She just sat on the edge of the bed and said, "That woman in the photo, Olivia, she deserves a better future than the one he was planning for her. And you're the only one who can build it." Her words cut through the grief and reminded me of the mission. I wasn't just destroying his life, I was clearing the ground to build my own. I picked myself up, washed my face, and got back to work. The service was scheduled for Friday at 2 p.m. Jessica's timing was impeccable. It was right after the weekly all-hands marketing meeting, a time when Nathan would be feeling his most confident, surrounded by his colleagues. From my perch in a coffee shop across the street, I watched as a bland-looking man in a suit entered the building. 40 minutes later, I saw Nathan burst out onto the sidewalk. He wasn't the calm, charismatic executive anymore. His face was blotchy, his tie was askew, and he was stabbing at his phone with a shaking finger. My own phone lit up, again and again. I silenced it and took a slow, deliberate sip of my latte. That evening, the real fireworks began. Vanessa, realizing Nathan couldn't get through to me, started calling. I let her go to voicemail. The messages became increasingly frantic. Then she showed up at Jamie's apartment, pounding on the door, her voice shrill with a rage that was terrifying in its lack of self-awareness. "Olivia! You bitch! Open this door! You're ruining everything!" Through the peephole, I watched my own sister, her face twisted in a mask of fury, not because she was sorry, but because she'd been caught. She wasn't mourning the end of my relationship, she was mourning the end of her free ride. While she was screaming in the hallway, she was also on the phone. I could hear her muffled, sobbing voice. "She's crazy, Mom, completely insane, jealous of me and Nathan, she's making it all up to destroy us." She was already spinning the narrative, laying the groundwork for the next phase of the war. After 10 minutes of her tirade, we called building security. As they escorted her away, she screamed one last thing at the closed door, "You'll regret this. Mom and Dad will never forgive you." She was right about that last part. The call from my parents was a masterclass in gaslighting. My mother cried, my father yelled. They called me cruel, vindictive, unstable. They completely ignored the facts of the affair and the embezzlement. In their world, the only crime that had been committed was my refusal to suffer in silence. The call ended with me saying, "I have to go," and hanging up on my own parents for the first time in my life. The silence that followed was deafening, but it was the sound of chains breaking. The demolition was almost complete. The final phase of the plan was executed with the quiet precision of a whisper. On Monday morning, from a library computer, Marcus hit send. The email was a Trojan horse, delivered anonymously to the inboxes of the CEO, the CFO, and the head of human resources at Nathan's company. The subject line was simple, a matter of financial concern regarding Nathan Maxwell. The body of the email contained no accusations, only a link to a secure, encrypted cloud folder. Inside that folder was everything: the falsified expense reports, the hotel receipts that didn't match his business travel, the credit card statements showing lavish personal gifts coded as client appreciation. It was a cold, undeniable portfolio of his crimes. The corporate response was like a slow-moving avalanche. At first, there was silence. Then, rumbles. I heard from a friend that a team of forensic accountants had been brought in. They were polite, discreet, and they were tearing Nathan's entire professional life apart, document by document. They interviewed his colleagues, his assistants, his vendors. They uncovered years of deception, a pattern of fraud that went far beyond funding his affair with Vanessa. The total was staggering, nearly $400,000 in embezzled funds over 4 years. He had been living a champagne life on a beer budget, his company's beer budget. 2 weeks after the email was sent, the avalanche hit. It wasn't dramatic, like in the movies. It was quiet and utterly humiliating. 2 men from corporate security appeared at Nathan's office in the middle of the day. They didn't raise their voices. They simply stood by as he was instructed to pack his personal items. In full view of the entire marketing department, the people he had schemed to impress, he was stripped of his company phone, his laptop, his keycard. He was escorted out of the building like a common thief, carrying a small cardboard box containing a framed photo of us. The irony was sickening, and a dying desk plant. That night, he found me. He was waiting in the shadows of my office parking garage. He looked like a cornered animal. The charm was gone, the arrogance stripped away, leaving only a raw, desperate fear. "You," he spat, his voice trembling with rage. "This was you. You couldn't just leave. You had to burn everything to the ground." I stood my ground, my keys clutched in my fist. I didn't burn anything, Nathan, I said, my voice as cold and hard as concrete. I just exposed a structure that was already rotten to the core. You were the one who lit the match every time you falsified an expense report, every time you took my sister to a hotel on the company's dime. It's my career, Olivia. My whole life. And what about my life? I shot back, my own anger finally flaring. The one you used as a stepping stone? The salary you used as an engine for your escape plan? You didn't just cheat on me, Nathan. You devalued me. You treated me like an object. This isn't just about my broken heart. This is about my self-respect. He took a step closer, his face contorted. I'll be ruined. You should have thought of that before you risked federal wire fraud charges, I said, letting the words hang in the air. I saw the flicker of comprehension in his eyes, the dawning horror that this was bigger than a messy breakup or a lost job. This was criminal. This was prison. He stumbled back, speechless. I walked past him without another word, got in my car, and drove away, leaving him standing alone in the darkness. The police arrested him at his temporary apartment a week later. The final piece of demolition was the one I dreaded most, the final confrontation with my family. They summoned me to their house for a family meeting. I walked into the living room, and it was a staged ambush. My mother was on the couch, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. My father stood by the fireplace, his arms crossed, his face a mask of disappointment. And on the armchair, playing the role of the tragic victim, was Vanessa. Olivia, thank you for coming, my father began, his voice heavy with false gravitas. Your mother and I think this has gone far enough. A man is facing prison time. Your sister has lost her job, her reputation. It is a disaster. It is a consequence, I corrected him. My mother started to cry harder. How can you be so cold? This is your family. Vanessa made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but she is your sister. You are supposed to protect each other. Protect her? I asked, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I have been protecting her my entire life. I protected her from the consequences of her bad grades, her car accidents, her failed business. I protected this family by giving up my own future. And while I was doing that, she was sleeping with my fiancé, laughing behind my back, and helping him spend money he was stealing. Who was protecting me? The room went silent. He loves me, Vanessa whispered from the chair, her first words. He was going to leave you for me anyway. It was so delusional, so completely devoid of remorse, that it clarified everything. This isn't about love, I said, my voice low and steady. This is about character. About right and wrong. Something you too, I looked at my parents, failed to teach her, because you were too busy making excuses for her. My father's face flushed with anger. That is enough. You will call the district attorney. You will retract your statement. You will say it was all a misunderstanding. You will do this for the family. I stood up. I could feel my legs shaking, but my voice was firm. There is no family to do this for anymore. You broke it. All of you. I looked at my parents. I spent my life being the reliable one, the strong one. I was the bridge that held this family together over every troubled water. And you stood by and watched as your favorite daughter doused it in gasoline and lit a match. I walked to the front door and put my hand on the knob. I'm done being your bridge. From now on, you can all figure out how to swim on your own. I walked out and closed the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I closed it softly, with a finality that was more powerful than any shout. I got in my car, and as I drove away from the house I grew up in for the last time, I didn't cry. I felt a profound, aching sense of loss, but underneath it, for the first time, I felt the solid ground of a new foundation beginning to form. A foundation that was all my own. The year that followed was one of reconstruction. The divorce was a formality. Faced with a mountain of criminal evidence, Nathan's lawyer advised him to settle quickly. I walked away with our home, my retirement accounts, and my dignity. He walked away facing a federal indictment. Freed from the emotional weight of my family and my relationship, my career soared. I poured all my focus, all my passion, into my work. My firm recognized my dedication, and a year after that fateful day in the coffee shop, I was promoted to lead project engineer. My first assignment was a career-defining one, to lead the design team for the new Beacon Tower, a skyscraper poised to become the city's next great landmark. And then there was Marcus. Our friendship, forged in the fires of betrayal, slowly transformed. We had seen each other at our most broken, and we helped each other heal. He was everything Nathan pretended to be, genuinely kind, fiercely intelligent, and deeply decent. Our dates weren't about impressing anyone, they were about connection. We'd spend hours at museums, or hiking, or simply sitting in a quiet cafe, talking about everything and nothing. He loved the way my mind worked, and I loved the quiet strength of his character. We were two survivors, cautiously building something new and beautiful from the wreckage of our pasts. Nathan eventually took a plea deal to avoid a longer sentence. He was sentenced to 3 years in a federal correctional facility for wire fraud and embezzlement. Vanessa's life imploded in a quieter, but no less definitive, way. Unemployable in her field, she had to move back in with my parents and took a job folding sweaters at a mall. Her vibrant social life evaporated. I knew I had truly healed when I was able to use my experience to create something positive. I established the Solid Foundations Scholarship, a fund at my old community college designed to help young women from difficult backgrounds pursue degrees in STEM fields. I wanted to give them the chance that I had to fight so hard to reclaim for myself. The final, surreal postscript to the whole affair happened just last month. It was late, and I was at home with Marcus, looking over some initial blueprints for the Beacon Tower. My intercom buzzed. I checked the security camera feed on my phone and felt a jolt. It was Vanessa. She looked older, haggard. The designer clothes were gone, replaced by a cheap fast fashion jacket. She rang the bell again, then again, a desperate, rhythmic pounding. Marcus put his hand over mine. "You don't have to answer," he said softly. I watched her on the small screen. I saw her shoulders slump in defeat as she finally gave up and turned away, disappearing into the night. There was no anger, no satisfaction, not even pity. There was just quiet. She was a ghost from another life, a life I had demolished and cleared away. I turned off the monitor and walked to the massive window of my apartment. I looked out at the city lights, a glittering tapestry of human endeavor. Somewhere out there, deep in the earth, the first foundations of my tower were being laid. It would be strong, elegant, and resilient. It would reach for the sky. It was my design. And nothing, and no one, would ever tear it down. Thank you so much for listening to my story. It's been a wild journey, and sharing it helps me process it all. I have a question for all of you watching. Have you ever had to make the difficult decision to cut ties with a family member to protect your own peace? Let me know your experiences in the comments below. And if my story resonated with you, please give this video a like and subscribe for more. It really does help.